Morning, everyone. Today, I'll be talking on the incidence, mortality, and the prevalence of cancer. When we talk about this incidence, mortality, and prevalence, the first thing that comes into mind is the data that that are used to derive this information. So the main data sources it can be from the hospital-based data source, it can be the pathology-based or the population-based. Generally, the different countries and the hospitals within the countries, they have the different label of the data sources, different registries where the data are stored, they are collected, and then a compiled data is used to derive any information. Among them, the population-based, pathology-based, and hospital-based cancer registry. The population-based cancer registry is said to be the one of the best one, where we have all information regarding systematically collects the information of all the reportable neoplasm occurring in the geographically defined population. So it takes a account of regarding the population, defined population. Whereas a hospital based just the information of a hospital. So if you are getting a data from a BP census, that means the data is pertaining to the regarding the BP census that may not reflect the whole of the country. So if the whole of the country data is in different hospitals, then it becomes a population-based cancer registry. So it is considered to be a gold standard for the provision of information on cancer incidence in a defined population. So this is the different cancer registry from different parts of the world. About out of the 99% of the cancer registries that has been submitted, 65% of the cancer registries are only accepted. Similarly, 675 of the cancer registries that have been submitted, where 460% is only accepted. If we see this is the heat map. If this is the map where you can see the distribution of the incidence source. Like for the calculation of the incidence, we have a data source. If you see in the left lower corner, like the incidence source is written as national, subnational level different. If you see, from here, the grade one is the no data source. If you see for our Nepal, we do not have a good incident data source to give the information to derive the actual incidence of a disease in Nepal. Similarly, regarding the mortality data source, we do not actually have a much better data source. It is actually calculated on the basis of the survival estimates from the nearby countries like Sikkim and all. These countries are used to calculate the survival estimates for Nepal. So regarding incidence, our country falls in the range of 9, that is no data rates is available. And for mortality, it comes under the 3C, where the estimate for the national incidence estimates of the modeling from that is derived from the survival estimations of the other countries. The International Agency for Research on Cancer, it is actually under the WHO, World Health Organization. It mainly provides us the global estimate for the cancer incidence, mortality, and prevalence. It mainly gives this information via the GloboCan. This GloboCan, what it does is that every year it publishes the data regarding our incidence, mortality, and prevalence. CI5, it is the cancer incidence file that of the 5 continents, and every 5 years this data is published on the from the WHO mortality database. So from this WHO website, we have a different info. They have the tools which gives the information what is the status of cancer today. From the cancer tomorrow, we can predict in the next 25 to 40 years what is the change in the cancer. Like up to 45 years, we can 2045 we can predict what would be the changes in the cancer. And cancer incidence for in 5 continents is the 5 years data it is. So the GloboCam it mainly gives the information of 185 countries and includes around 36 cancer types. For the GloboCam data, generally they use is the income based was generally classified by the World Bank, and the HDI Human Development Index, mainly which is developed by the United Nations Development Program. So STI will include the long and the healthy life, knowledge and the decision, that is life expectancy, knowledge and the per capita income. So whenever we talk about the incidence, prevalence and the mortality, first of all we need to know the measure of the cancer burden. The measure of the cancer burden in very simple terms, it mainly consists of the counting the number of the what are the cases that are diagnosed to have newly diagnosed cases and the number of the newly diagnosed deaths from due to cancer. On the other hand, we can from the prevalence of prevalent cancer, prevalent case is defined as the total number of person who have a history of a cancer at some specified point of time in a defined geographical area, regardless whether they are on the remission, treatment, or cure. I want to repeat, I am not talking about the incidence, mortality, and prevalence. Right now, I am just talking about the number of the new cases, number of the deaths, and the number of the prevalent cases. So by prevalent, we means that anyone who had a cancer, there was a remission, treatment, or there was a cure of a cancer. So in the present data, in 2022, the latest data of 2023, 24, 25 is not available at WHO website. According to latest, there were around 1 crore 99 lakhs new cases of cancer diagnosed and 97 lakhs cases of deaths per year. And the prevalence at any point in a period of 5 years, we have at least 5 crore 35 lakhs of the cases, cancer cases. From this, we can see the most common cancer, like in male, the most common cancer is the lung, followed by prostate, colorectal cancer, stomach, and liver. In female, breast, lung, then after colorectal and the cervical. Whereas in both the sexes, lung followed by breast and colorectal cancer is the ranking order. If we see on the basis of the income HDI of the different country income level, the high income countries, they have the maximum number of the cancer is 39.1. Upper middle countries has the highest cancer incidence compared to the high income countries. So this is the burden, just the number of the cases. So when we talk about the risk, this is the risk mainly gives us the information regarding the average probability that an individual in a given population will be diagnosed or die from a cancer in a defined time interval. And when we talk about the risk, it gives us a valid comparison between the over time. And when we talk about the risk, then we can use the term actually incidence, mortality, prevalence. So incidence is the number of the new cases arising in a specified population over a period of a time, that is per lakh persons per year. Mortality is the number of deaths in a given period of time, typically 1 year, and it's again measured in the number of deaths per lakh population per year. Prevalence again is the number of the individuals with a defined population who have been diagnosed with the cancer which are still alive at a given period of a time, point of time. So it includes all the cases that was either in the remission or they are under treatment or completed the treatment or newly diagnosed cases. Now this is another term that is the cumulative risk. Cumulative risk, like cumulative incidence and mortality, this is mainly the probability or risk of individual developing or dying from a disease during a specified period. It is mainly calculated as per 100. So from this data, from this information, like there are, as we have seen, there are around 1 crore 99 cases, 1 crore 99 lakh cases per year. From this, if we see the incidence rate, the information, what is the information that we get if the incidence rate is written as 212 or if it is written 196? It means 196 cases will be per 1 lakh population will be diagnosed as a cancer. On the other hand, when the cumulative risk, if it is written as 20, so from this what we get, the information that we get is 20 out of 100 persons is likely to have risk of developing the cancer before the age of 75. I again repeat, the number of the cases is the age incidence rate is 196 per lakh population, and cumulative risk is 20% out of 100 have the chances of risk of developing the cancer before the age of 75. This is just a absolute incidence of the cases. This is the different portion of the world, like Asia, Europe. We can see the highest incidence is seen in the Asia, and Asia followed by Europe. Whereas the mortality, highest risk of the mortality is seen in the Asia, followed by Europe and Northern America. This is the different like incidence. The highest incidence is here of the lung cancer, followed by breast cancer and colorectal cancer. Regarding the mortality, the highest is for the lung cancer and the colorectal cancer, followed by liver cancer. If you see the prevalence, the highest prevalent cancer is in the Asia, of which the breast cancer is the most prevalent cancer that is found in both the sexes. If we divide the same chart into the male, divide into the male and the female, in the male population is shown to have a higher incidence of the cancer compared to females, and this is the most of the distribution towards the Asia and the Europe. For the survival mainly represents the population of the portion of the people alive with a certain who was alive in a certain period of a time, generally 5 years. For some chronic disease, it can be up to the 10 to 15 years also. So for the net survival, you use the cancer specific survival or the relative survival. So this is the similar data like incidence and the mortality of the disease. There is a long list of the cancers. Like for all cancer we can determine what is the cumulative risk of lifetime risk of developing a cancer. Can also what is the incidence of a cancer. There are the different demographic factors that affect the cancer risk. Like one of them is the age. They say that as the age is increases, the risk of the cancer increases. Probably it is due to the different carcinogens that is exposed to the person over a period of a time. But however, the age of a population, age group of one population differs from the age group of another population. Like Nepal age distribution may be quite different from that from America. So the age standardized rate is much important. So uh, it is mainly age standard rate, the measure of the rate that would have been observed if the population has a standard age structure. So we could divide the population into different age group that has been standardized, and accordingly the age standard rate is calculated. The most frequently used standard population is the world standard population. Calculate age incidence or the mortality rate is then called the age standardized incidence of mortality rate, and is expressed as per lakh population. This is the graph. In this graph, we can see as the age of a person is increasing, like from 0 to 80 years, the incidence of most of the cancer is steeply increases. Like in the esophagus, stomach, colorectal cancer, the incidence is increasing. However, on the other side, this graph you can see, though there is an increase in the incidence of cancer in for certain cancers, but there is some difference. Like for the breast cancer, please see for the breast cancer, the age is as the age increases, the risk of the cancer increases. 850 received on phone pay QR. As for the breast cancer, the as the risk increases, but around 50 to 60, there is a slight dip in the increase in the risk incidence. Similarly, for the lymphoma, we can see there is a one peak is over here and the peak is over here. So for the breast cancer, it is said that is the Clemenson's hook is said where one peak it increases up to the 50 years of age and then after it decreases. So age standardized rate of different parts of the population it can be seen that in the portion of the North America in this portion or in the Australia this portion we have a higher chances of developing higher risk of incidence of the cancer scene compared to the Asian countries, African countries. Similarly, the mortality rates are also higher in these countries compared to the Asian countries, especially Nepal and India. So darker the color, this is the heat map. Darker the color, it shows that the higher the incidence of mortality, and lighter the color, it shows that the lesser the incidence and mortality. Similarly, the other demographic factor is one of the sex. As the we have seen that most of the cancer is highly prevalent in male. Like for the male to female ratio for the melanoma is 1.3. For the it can increase up to 7.3 ratio for larynx cancer. However, for thyroid cancer, gallbladder cancer, anus cancer, the incidence it is slightly the female to male ratio is higher. Probably they have been associated like the male mainly exposed to the external environment, the tobacco smoking, SPV infections, chronic hepatitis, and they also say that this may be the different mechanisms like antioxidative difference between the male and the female body morphology, like genetic makeup, hormones, immune competence. These all may be cause for this. They, Similarly, there is also the socioeconomic status also differs. Like certain group of cancer, this is more common on the population which are highly uh, high economic value population, whereas certain groups are more common in the population who have the low socioeconomic education. So probably it may be many times the people are not given the proper treatment. They don't get the early diagnosis or screening modalities is not able. Proper treatment is not received. That changes the screen. That changes the incidence and the mortality in different groups of population. Similarly, the race and ethnicity is also seen. Like in this, we can see there the black represents the Americans. Uh, this black represents the American Indians. Green represents the black population. Asian is red. Hispanic is blue, and non-Hispanic is light blue. From this, we can see from this chart overall all cancer. Over here, the non-Hispanic, Hispanic, and black. Non-Hispanic, Hispanic, and black. They have a higher incidence of cancer compared to Americans and Asian population. However, when we see the mortality incidence, the Hispanic, however, the Asian population, they have a lower incidence of mortality compared to the non-Hispanic ones. So from this, and this is the different bar chart. From this also we can see the incidence and mortality, and we can compare between the different populations and the different races, ethnic groups. So global patterns of the cancer risk and burden. These are just the repetitions in different forms. Like in the different parts of the world, we can see that Australia, New Zealand, North America, they have the high incidence and the high mortality. However, if we see the South Central Asia in our part of the Southeast Asia, we can see the incidence is 159 out of and the mortality is 140. South Central Asia is 100, 3 is the incidence and the mortality is 71. However, in the developed countries, the incidence is high, but the mortality is in the lower side. Similar goes for the male and the females. If we see, this is like most common cancer per country wise. Over here, the most common cancer is found to be prostate cancer. It is found to be most common in 118 countries. The green, it is reflected. The green, it reflects the prostate cancer. It is found to be in out of 165 countries, 118 countries has the most common cancer as the prostate cancer, followed by lung cancer. So it is the incidence in male. If we see the mortality in males, the most common cause of the mortality in 89 countries, 89 countries is the lung cancer, represented by blue over here, followed by prostate cancer. So the incidence is due to the prostate cancer, whereas mortality, most common cause of the mortality is the prostate cancer. Sorry, lung cancer. Whereas in females, the pink represents the breast cancer, which is the most common cancer in females in 158 countries, followed by cervical cancer. But the similarly, the mortality rate is due to the most common due to the breast cancer only in 111 countries, followed by cervical cancer. This is just the representation on the incidence and mortality depending upon the HDI index, Human Development Index. Like if you see the developed high, this X value represents the HDI value, where the as the HDI or shows the level of the development. as it increases. So if I say that the countries like over here, pink, Oceania, and the blue, Europe, these countries who have a good HDI value, they have a higher incidence of the cancer cell. Whereas in this, the mortality rates is more higher in the countries like Europe also. It's higher, it's in the highest level. Just it's a scattered chart. So I will be talking just a few more incidents of the few common cancers. Like for the lung cancer, it is the most common cancer. The around 2 lakh, around 24 lakh cases are diagnosed per year, and the mortality is also most commonly due to the lung cancer. And around 18 lakhs deaths occur due to lung cancer per year. So most common, most of the cases are seen from the Asia, and the most prevalence is also from the Asia. Similarly, for the breast cancer is the second most common, around 22 lakhs, 22 lakhs, more than 22 lakhs cases of breast cancer are seen per year, are diagnosed, of which the mortality around 66 lakhs of the breast cancer cases is seen per year. The distribution in incidence and mortality of breast cancer in different parts of the world. Similarly, the heat map for the breast cancer. So most of the breast cancer is the different parts of it. Or second cancer. Similarly, the prostate cancer. Just for Nepal, so 3 more slides. For Nepal, in Nepal, the number of new cases according to 2022, around 22,000 of the new cancer cases are diagnosed, of which 14,000 deaths per year. The cumulative risk is 8.7, that is 8.7% out of 100. 8.7 people out of 100 people is likely to have a risk of developing a cancer before the age of 75 years, and the age is, and the new cases is most common cancer in the Nepal is the lung, followed by breast and the cervical cancer, and is the incidence and mortality charts. There's another term is the cancer tomorrow, that is from the GloboCan. At present, according to 2022, there are the 14 million cancers is diagnosed. But if we predict it to the 2025, around 20 million cancers is likely cancer cases is likely to increase. This is the bubble chart where the patient, according to different HDI, the level of cancers, the number of the estimated number of the new cancer cases is going to increase. Similarly, the mortality of the cancers is going to increase in around 2045.
So this specific program was to introduce such a high esteemed manpower in the sector of surgical oncology in Nepal, so that these personnel should be able to not only provide delivery of surgical care, at the meantime they have to be leaders in the society of surgical arena as well as the cancer care as a whole. So the idea of doing this type of classes are to understand what are the basic terminologies, incidence, mortality, and etc. etc. Because most of the time we are taking care of patient, we do a lot of clinical work, but we are not much aware of these things. So treating a patient sometimes doesn't give much to the society, because we need to understand a lot of things, and also have to intervene in preventive aspects as well as understand what the burden of society, what are the diseases that are common in society. So from this talk, I was wishing, let's say we want to calculate incidence of cancer in Chitwan. What basic data should we require? Can you explain to me? What given what are the data? Let's say population, and what else would you require to calculate the cancer incidence in Chitwan?
So for this, first we need to know the population of a children, the population, and according to that population, we need to calculate the at least the sample size. How much sample in what population? At least this much number of the population we see. From that, we can that can be the representation of the whole of the children population. So accordingly,
What is it called? Let's say you take a ward र चितवनको हाम्रो 29 नम्बरवटा लियौँ, त्यसको पपुलेसन काउन्ट गऱ्यौँ, त्यसमा क्यान्सर कतिजना भनेर काउन्ट गऱ्यौँ, त्यसबाट तिमीहरूले के भयो त्यो चिज चाहिँ? वाट इज द्याट? न्यू क्यान्सर केस मात्रै लियो भने त्यो के हुने भयो?
The incidence.
प्रिभेलेन्स भनेको के भयो?
Prevalence is the over a period of a time. Like from if we 2017 to 2022 or 2022 in a period of a time, what is the number of the cases as a whole?
Number of cancer cases
that is alive.
existing at a point of time in the society हो क्या प्रिभेलेन्स भने? जस्तै तिमीले 2011 को अथवा तिमीले 2020 को जनवरी महिनाको 5 गते तिमीले काउन्ट गर्यो टोटल क्यान्सर पेसेन्ट र त्यतिखेरको पपुलेसन गर्छ, त्यसले त्यसलाई भाग गरेर द्याट इज कल्ड प्रिभेलेन्स होइन? अनि त्यसको लागि इन्सिडेन्स भनेको चाहिँ न्यू केस भयो नि, इन्सिडेन्स भयो। अब अनि त्यस्तो एउटा वार्डमा लिने र त्यसलाई क्यालकुलेट गर्न हामीले के भन्छौँ भने भर्खर भन्यो तिमीले
Clusters.
दिस इज कल्ड पाइलट स्टडी र स्याम्पलिङ होइन? अनि सिमिलर पपुलेसन छ, अब यो थारू कम्युनिटी हो, यो बाहिर कम्युनिटी छ, यहाँनिर दराई कम्युनिटी छ भनेर त्यो कम्युनिटी वाइज डिजिज फरक पर्न सक्छ होइन? जस्तै ब्रेस्ट क्यान्सर यहाँ बढी होला, प्रोस्टेट त्यहाँ बढी होला, तर पनि ओभरअलमा त हामीले एउटा ठाउँको स्याम्पलिङ गऱ्यौँ भने अब ओभरअलमा यो जिल्लामा यदि मान्छेहरूले गुणा गरेर पनि एस्टिमेट निकाल्न सक्छ होइन?
That sample should represent that population which we are going to, whose incidence we are trying to come. Like as you said, that Tharu community, Madhesi community, certain community, they are the different communities in a population. So that the sample, we have to take a sample from each community so that will represent the desired population.
त्यसमा चाहिँ अब बेस्ट कुरा के हुँदो रहेछ त? रियलमै निकाल्न सकियो भने बेस्ट हुँदैन। त्यो हामीले चाहिँ डाटा छैन भन्ने मात्रै भन्दा छ नि। त्यस कारण त्यसमा हामीले के बुझ्नु पर्यो भन्दा डाटा दिने पनि सायद हामीले तिमीले पपुलेसन बेस्ड क्यान्सर रजिस्ट्रीको कुरा गर्यौ भने त्यसमा डाटा एक्विजिसन कहाँबाट हुँदो रहेछ? What are the sources of data?
चारवटा हुन्छ सर त्यसमा। एउटा भाइटल रजिस्ट्री भन्ने हुन्छ। भाइटल रजिस्ट्रीमा चाहिँ जस्तै अब मोर्टालिटी रिलेटेड कति मोर्टालिटी भएको छ हरेक गाविसबाट डाटा हामी रिट्राइभ गर्छ, क्यान्सर रिलेटेड डेथहरूको डाटा। त्यसपछि हामीले पठाउँछौँ जुन चाहिँ पनि सोसियल सेक्युरिटीको लागि हामीले 1 लाख रुपियाँ प्रोभाइड गरेको हुन्छ नि सरकारले, गभर्मेन्टले। त्यो चाहिँ हामीले रजिस्ट्री नगरिकन कसैले पनि पाउँदैन त्यो चाहिँ। त्यसबाट रजिस्ट्री तान्छ एउटा। त्यसपछि हस्पिटल बेस्ड, पपुलेसन हस्पिटल बेस्ड र प्याथोलोजी बेस्ड गरेर चारवटाबाट डाटा गर्छ। डुप्लिकेसनलाई घटाएर फाइनली तपाईँको सिग्रिगेट गरेर डाटा एउटा
नेपालको
सोलिड गर्छ नेपालको।
हाम्रो कन्टेक्समा त्यो छ, तर सकेसम्म त त्यो भाइटल रजिस्ट्री नै हुँदैछ किन? अब विदेशतिर चाहिँ प्रायः प्रोग्रेड फिस्कल भनेर हुनुहुन्छ, उनीहरू चाहिँ मोर्टालिटी डाटा राख्छ र इन्सिडेन्स डाटा राख्छ। तिनीहरू चाहिँ त्यो बेसिकली इज अ वार्ड अथवा म्युनिसिपल काउन्सिलको रेस्पोन्सिबिलिटी हो। त्यो म्युनिसिपल काउन्सिलले एक्विजिसन गर्छ। त्यसबाट उनीहरूको रिजनल क्यान्सर रजिस्ट्री भन्ने हुन्छ। जस्तै अब इन्डियामै पनि त्यो लखनऊ रजिस्ट्री, लिम्फोमा रजिस्ट्री भन्ने छ। तर कस्तो छ भने लिमिटेड के हुन्छ भने लखनऊ लिम्फोमा रजिस्ट्री लिम्फोमा मात्र रेजिस्टर गर्छ क्या। अरू जस्तो कमन डिजिजेस अहिले पनि इन्डियनमा हामी टाटासँग अस्ति कुरा गर्ने क्रम के भयो भने उनीहरूले हामी सबै क्यान्सरको रजिस्ट्री राख्न चाहन्छौँ भन्दा तिमीहरूले यसो नगर, विच इज नट पोसिबल। तिमीहरू गर्न सक्दैन। तिमीहरू मोस्ट कमन तिमीहरू 10वटा क्यान्सर के छ त्यसको मात्र रजिस्ट्री राख रेकमेन्ड गर्दा, किनभने आखिरमा इन्ड अफ द डे यु हेभ टु प्रोसेस द डेटा, यु हेभ टु त्यो प्रपर एक्विजिसन पनि हुन पर्यो। त्यो सबै कारणले गर्न सक्दैनौँ। गर्न सकेसम्म चाहिँ सबै पपुलेसनमा भएको सबै कुराको इन्फर्मेसन राख्न सक्यो भने त्यस कारणले अब यसको उद्देश्य एउटा के पनि भन्दा होइन, यु हेज टु बी सेन्सिटाइज द्याट इन्फर्मेसन्स आर सो इम्पोर्टेन्ट। फिल द फर्म्स, आवश्यक कागजहरू कति त्यस्ता चिज आइपुग्यो भने तिम्रो हातमा आयो भने तिम्रो लिडरसिपमा आयो भने त्यो कुरा तिमीले प्रायोरिटाइज गर। बिकज इन्ड अफ द डे अब हामीले जे कुरा गर्छौँ अहिले त्यसको क्यालकुलेसनको 5 वर्ष अथवा 10 वर्ष पछाडि हुन्छ। त्यसले गर्दाखेरिमा लेट्स बी सेन्सिटाइज अब त के हो र होइन। जुन कुरा पढ्ने कुरा तिमीले जति धेरै अब ग्लोबल इन्फर्मेसन धेरै राख्यो, तर बेसिक आइडिया वाज स्टिल टु मेक स्योर वाट इज इन्सिडेन्स। इन्सिडेन्स भनेको के हो त एक्ज्याक्टली होइन, मोर्टालिटी भनेको के हो, अथवा तिमीले अब रेफ्युजिसको कुरा गर्यो त्यो भनेको के हो, प्रिभलेन्स भनेको के हो, मोर्टालिटी चाहिँ कसरी क्यालकुलेट गर्छ?
The number of the deaths in a population per lakh population.
जस्तै अब क्यान्सर स्पेसिफिक मोर्टालिटी भनेको के हुन्छ?
Cancer specific mortality is that due to a certain cause, the cancer patient can die due to the cancer specific mortality can be to the non-cancer cause or due to the cancer cause. If it is the patient is dying,
क्यान्सर स्पेसिफिक भनेपछि नन क्यान्सर कज हुन्छ। जस्तै एउटा सिए लङको बिरामी थियो, हार्ट एट्याक भएर मऱ्यो, त्यो के कता फलो गर्नु चिज त क्यान्सर स्पेसिफिक मोर्टालिटी के हुन्छ अथवा चाहिँ ओभरअल मोर्टालिटी के हुन्छ? त्यो क्लियर भयो तिमी?
त्यसमा पनि cancer specific is the same cancer, the different cancer is so that's why it's the primary cancer and secondary cancer body. The cancer specific mortality is the patient who has died due to the cancer only.
त्यही भएर हामीले चाहिँ हाम्रो डेथको सर्टिफिकेट हुन्छ नि त्यहाँनिर सबैको कार्डियोपल्मोनरी अरेस्ट भनेर लेख्छौँ कि अब कतिको के हो द्याट हेज टु बी अल्सो बी टेकन इन कन्सिडरेसन कि जस्तै अब के भएर मलाई लङ क्यान्सरको डाइरेक्ट कम्प्लिकेसन हो कि हामी तिनवटा कज छ नि त अब डाइरेक्ट कज के कन्ट्रिब्युटिङ कज कुनै के कज हो तिनवटा छ होइन त्यो छुट्याउनु सकिन्छ थिङ्स आर इम्पोर्टेन्ट क्या त्यसले गर्दा हामीले एटलिस्ट एज अ सर्जिकल ओन्कोलोजी ट्रेनिज हामीले हामीलाई त्यसमा पनि अलिकति दिमागमा त्यो सेरो सो द्याट वी सुड बी एबल टु राइट इन प्रपरली ट्राई टु अन्डरस्ट्यान्ड त्यो तिनवटा कज अफ डेथ भनेको के हो त विच वान फल्स वेयर होइन हामी अपरेसन गरेर पनि हामी अब भनौँ निमोनिया भएर डेथ भयो त्यसलाई कता राख्ने त्यस कज अफ डेथ अब कासिमा प्याङ्क्रियाज हो कि होइन फेरि अल्पट्टिमा प्रायः कज अफ डेथ त क्यान्सरै राखिन्छ होला हाम्रो तर अब के हो एक्ज्याक्टली त्यो पनि अलिकति मन्थन गरौँ सो द्याट यो पेपर राइट त्यसमा त क्यान्सर स्पेसिफिक मोर्टालिटी त्यहाँबाट आउने होला नि त इन द डे क्याल्कुलेसन त्यसले गर्दा ती कुराहरू चाहिँ अलिक बुझ्न कोसिस गरौँ सेन्सिटाइज हो भन्ने उद्देश्य हुन्छ
Well, के लाग्छ भने very nice अब if you see the overall scenario, what has been said that the worst data is coming from our country. The maximum data are coming from the Western society, the American society, then the European society, then the Asian society. But the most people who are suffering from the cancer belong to the Asian continent. Out of the 5 continents, the highest number is from the Asian continent. So it's different. So where lies the thing? Where is the mistake? The well-advanced countries in Asia, even like China, Japan, or Korea, etc., they have a very good data. So they are following each and every patient. The problem here, if you see the scenario of Nepal, what happened? We started the hospital-based cancer registry. We call it National Cancer Registry, but it's actually not a national cancer. It's the hospital. It started from our hospital. So later on, we accumulated 5 hospitals, like this hospital, teaching hospital, Peer Hospital, and Dharan. These hospitals came together and we expanded, but still we call it the hospital-based registry. Now, population-based registry was, as of my knowledge, though the documentation is different, many things are being biased from Nasaksa, but it started basically from our hospital. The leadership was from our hospital, and the first population-based population-based registry in Nepal. In Chitwani, some of the 3-4 districts were started from our hospital. Then it was led by the national NHRC, and it was led by the NHRC. They are doing it perhaps 10 or 13 districts, and they are in a way to publish some population-based cancer registry data. But the first population-based cancer registry data was published from our hospital. Right? So this is a good thing. I'm really rational. Like Dr. Nirmal said, what should be the main cause of death? Quite often we get confused. In our form, it's written clearly. The first cause of death should be the disease which he is suffering from. So if he is suffering from cancer of lung, rather than some heart attack or I don't know, asystole, etc., or cardiopulmonary arrest, it's written clearly. From that he has pointed very well. From that point of view, we can retrieve data. At one point of time, there will be some data. If somebody will start collecting and entering into the software, then the data will be collected. What is the cancer specific mortality? So from that point of maybe it should go so. If the amlet is no cancer of lung or cancer of prostate or etc., if the supplement with the ARDS or pulmonary edema, then how will you know the patient died from the cancer? West case of this very clear. In the Western society, I think more than 90% of the people go the autopsy. So it will be very clear what's the cause of the death. Even in a non-diagnosed cancer patient. There are cancer diagnosis in but he died, and autopsy will show that really he was suffering from cancer or not, right? So but you should be the leaders, I think, in future. You should be very specific about urology, the surgical oncology is first, then second you have function with the uro-oncology. So you want to see, for example, I was very happy to one time notice that Dr. Nirmal presented a large form of penile cancer, which was hidden from the Nepalese society. It is so common and so hidden. Nobody knew what's the incidence at one point of time, what's the prevalence. It was supposed to be very prevalent, high prevalent cancer in Nepalese society. Which community, which ethnic group, from which districts the people are coming from. Generally from Tarai people and who have a poor hygiene, what is good. He has presented, I think, about 300 350 cases. It was very eye-opener thing for the whole Nepalese society. होइन त्यसरी नै तपाईँहरूले पनि जानुहोस् यो स्टडी गरेर तपाईँहरूले अब कसरी सबैलाई प्रोभोक गर्ने कि यु सुड भेरी पर्टिकुलर अबाउट रेकर्डिङ द डकुमेन्टिङ द डेटा एउटा मेसेज त्यसको त्यो अरू केही साथीहरू
अब अर्को कुरा नि जस्तै अब अलिक प्रिपरेसन वाइज बिकज यु आर गिभन टपिक probably a few